Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the panel. Today we're going to be presenting L'Oreal Group's strategy for 2017. The members of the group are Christian Martinez, Ramsey Jones, and Johnny Kim.
Alright, so we're going to start with the current strategy of the company. It's currently global brand and local knowledge. And they refer to this as the universalization strategy, where the strategy meets the local needs and expectations of customers to gain market share globally. And they recognize that they're a global firm, but they do this because this aligns with L'Oreal's brand promise of providing beauty for everyone. And in order to implement the strategy, in the past decade or so, there's been a couple strategic acquisitions. And it's not only just in the US, but also around the world. For example, USI in 2004 was acquisition in China, and same with 2014 Magic Holdings. L'Oreal is doing this to enrich their international portfolio to really cover a whole range of beauty territories and meet the aspirations of consumers across the planet.
L'Oreal leads in the growing cosmetics industry with rising opportunities in both e-commerce and the new markets. As you might know, L'Oreal competes in the global cosmetics industry, a stably growing industry in 2015, and has a total industry size of 203 billion euros. It is expanding steadily and is driven by trends such as new markets, urbanization, new consumers' desires fueled by social media, as well as innovation. In this industry, L'Oreal is the market share leader with 14.5% market share. Some key characteristics that are driving the industry, as a general summary of what has been said before, is a strong trend towards online sales, stable growth, customized solutions for customers, and a rising customer base in new markets.
So as you can see in our market analysis, we're showing that L'Oreal segments the existing market by professional versus non-professional, desired price points, health consciousness, and environmentally consciousness consumers, using its 5 brand divisions of consumer products, L'Oreal Luxe, professional production, active cosmetics, and the body shop. These broader divisions allow us to sub-segment the market into 5 main product groups of skincare, hair care, makeup, fragrances, and hygiene products. So as you can see, we offer a strong portfolio of products to consumers, but allows L'Oreal to differentiate itself from its competitors is our effectiveness in creating products targeting customers within specific geographic and psychographic segments. Through our strong segmentation, we are able to gather insights into the consumer and the products that they're desiring.
Now we're going to be going over the competition, and we identified 3 main competition types. The first one is Western conglomerate competitors, those like Estee Lauder, Unilever, and Coty. The second type is the local competitors in Asia, because that's the segment that we're really going after. And that's Shiseido, which is a Japanese conglomerate, and Amor Pacific, which is a Korean makeup company. And the third is niche companies like Lush Cosmetics. So what does this really mean for our strategy in the past, and what kind of strategy do we want to have in the future concerning this competition? Well, there's a couple things, and Coty, for example, is recently merged with Procter & Gamble's beauty brands, and from this we know that they use a lot of their cash to finance this merger, and therefore they're in significant amount of debt and won't be doing a lot of major activities in the near future. So even though Procter & Gamble was a huge player in China, because now they're under the Coty brand, they won't be as big of a player in China, and right now is a great time for us to go into China. Secondly, Shiseido. So Shiseido, their own CEO said in the most recent annual report that they are very strong in Japan right now, but they haven't been able to really adapt to the environment as fast as they should be doing. And that confirms that our current strategies is doing positively because as we cater towards the local needs of the customers, we're very aware of how the environment's changing and we're able to adapt to that very quickly.
So now we're going to do an analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for L'Oreal. Some of the core strengths that L'Oreal currently possesses is obviously, as we know, it has a wide, diverse ranging portfolio of brands. It also has a universal appeal with strong positioning in many markets and many product segments. It, as explained in the previous slides, it has a strong consolidated industry position, and it has a capacity to consistently innovate. However, some of the inherent weaknesses that L'Oreal has is a strong dependency on third-party sales, or what we all otherwise know as retail sales. And it's been questioned in the past for its CSR practices, corporate social responsibility, because of its questionable ethical stances in terms of using animal testing, amongst others. But the panorama for 2017 looks positive, as L'Oreal has certain opportunities, such as a strong market in emerging markets such as the Middle East and North Africa, as well as in China. Similarly, there's a positively growing e-commerce segment, which is reinforcing this growth in emerging markets. Some threats, however, are, as we know, strong competition by major big players, which we've mentioned before, such as Estee Lauder, Unilever, Coty, and also many niche Asian competitors, which make up close to 50% of the market that have high market share in particular market in emerging markets, even though they might not be as renowned globally. So the industry level strategy we would like to present is to disintermediate the value chain via virtual integration. So essentially, what the strategy means is, or what it consists of, is taking advantage of the growing online e-commerce segment and using it in order to eradicate L'Oreal's dependence on retail sales, which is an overwhelming majority of its sales day to day. And the way that this would be done would be by developing its L'Oreal's existing platforms on both PC and mobile. What this strategy will help us do is achieve our goals of getting like-for-like sales growth of 5% every year between 2017 and 2019, and it'll also help us increase like-for-like e-commerce sales by 40% annually over the next 3 years. And we also expect to increase our digital shares of consolidated sales from 5.2% to 12% by the year 2020. The diagnosis nature of the problem, or the root of the problem for based on which we're creating the strategy, is that there's a high dependency on retail sales, as discussed before. L'Oreal's current online selling channels, such as the mobile app and current website, are not visible enough, or not reaching out to the core segment, which it should be reaching out, which is millennials in emerging markets who are buying increasingly more and more from online methods. Demand from millennials shopping online is increasing, however, but L'Oreal's investment in e-commerce is not proportionate to this global increase in e-commerce. But at the same time, while we notice this, we also see that our main competitors are also making major inroads into e-commerce. So given the problem that we have and the goals that we want to achieve, we have many useful insights that will help us determine our ultimate strategy. And we see many different trends. One of them is that many internet-savvy consumers are eagerly tracking latest trends within the cosmetic industry through social media. So we can see how social media are an opportunity to direct potential customers towards e-commerce. It is much easier to gain a strong customer base if there is a strong involvement in social media sites such as Instagram, where cosmetics are heavily advertised and they are heavily showcased among celebrities and others. And it's easier to direct consumers from these social media sites directly to our e-commerce platforms, making for perfect compatibility. Additionally, the millennial generation is increasingly using social media and e-commerce, as explained before. As of 2015, the 37.9% global there was 37.9% global sales growth for e-commerce, in which is staggering compared to the growth that we see in retail sales. And e-commerce already composes 5.2% of the world beauty market. So we can see a three-way trend three trends that are mutually reinforcing: the increase of e-commerce sales, the increase of the millennial market, which are increasingly buying through e-commerce instead of buying through retail. And all of this is complemented by social media, which is only increasing the amount of millennials that are buying cosmetics related product through e-commerce. And where this trend is perhaps most evident is in China, and this is relevant because China is actually geographically speaking, it's one of our main areas of focus, which will be explored later on in the presentation. More than 20% share of consumer product sales in China were via e-commerce in 2015, and a staggering 68% of purchases on Singles Day in Alibaba, the largest e-commerce platform in China, were via mobile. This shows a great opportunity for L'Oreal's existing mobile app, Makeup Genius, and allows plenty of space to grow. Therefore, our strategy virtual integration consists of innovating in the value chain by disintermediating it through the incorporation of virtual integration or the e-commerce/online sales methods. What we are going to do in order to achieve this is we're going to increase spending in e-commerce by 30% in 2017 in order to further develop L'Oreal's digital platforms on both mobile and PC. This will allow us to sell directly to consumers instead of through retail. Additionally, it's also important to foster partnerships which we don't have with companies that already are established online retailers in the Chinese market. And one obvious candidate for such a partnership is Alibaba. And it should be looked at as a strategic partnership because of the huge inroads that Alibaba has already made in the cosmetics market. However, at the same time, while we're making an emphasis on e-commerce sales, we do want to maintain existing retail partnerships intact, as they obviously constitute a vast majority of our current revenue. So, in order to summarize our virtual integration strategy, we like to explain the causal logic behind it. This strategy disintermediates the value chain by decreasing the buyer leverage. Our buyers obviously are our retail stores. Since we won't have to depend on retail sales, we'll have an alternative sales channel which we can depend on, which is a very good one since it's growing in the light of e-commerce. This allows us to diversify our sales channel and increase our sources of income. The increased development of L'Oreal's mobile and PC e-commerce platform addresses a market that is not being sufficiently exposed to L'Oreal's products. Millennials in China are increasingly shopping online. The data we've shown before not only supports this, but it also shows that relative to our competitors, we can do much more to improve and to address this market. Finally, our existing app, Makeup Genius, does something unique by giving us the opportunity to offer customized solution to millennials. Customization is a key in perfecting our strategy from universalization from not just merely universalization and going further into localization. Our partnership with Alibaba will allow us to target a market that is already there, which is all the Chinese millennials who are consuming online. And at the same time, developing these online platforms allow for an alternative source of revenue through advertisement, which can be used to pay for initial investments in e-commerce.
So now I'll be explaining the second initiative, which is on the market level, which is our plan to expand our operations in the Chinese market. So we'll start with the goals. The goal is very similar, to increase total sales by 10% every year from 2017 to 2020. And we want a lot of that to come from China, and also in China we want a larger portion to come from online sales, from e-commerce sales. So why did we decide on China? What made us think that way? Well, there's a couple of insights that came into play, and the first one is that we believe that there's existing demand that's not currently being met by L'Oreal, and that we feel that way because of mostly what Christian described before, where there's a booming e-commerce market right now that's growing very rapidly, and we want to follow up on that. The second is that the market itself is growing, and so in 2015, the annual growth of cosmetics retail sales in China was 13.3% compared to the GDP of the same year, which was 6.9%. So we can see that the cosmetics market itself in China is growing at a rapid pace. And thirdly, competition. As I said before, there's high local competition and really high cultural barriers as well. Also unclear regulation and political uncertainty. And that's why we believe acquiring a local brand will be a good idea, which is something that I'll explain in the near future. And also, Estee Lauder will be a primary competition once we're in China, once we're trying to expand in China. And that makes L'Oreal believe we should target not only the luxury segment, but also the mass market as well. And fourthly, consumer behavior. The aesthetic needs of Chinese women are really being driven by skincare, which is a segment that L'Oreal is a leader in. So the strategy itself is, as it says on the screen, to offer customized solutions for social media savvy and middle and high income Chinese consumers in their 20s by acquiring appropriate local brands. This is actually different from our existing strategy by a little bit because in the past we have also done acquisitions in China. However, we made a couple mistakes where the brand image of the companies that we acquired weren't necessarily associated with the young generation, and it was for slightly older people, and that didn't really match with the Chinese market, the Chinese market's demographics. So this time we're going to be focusing on the Chinese people in the 20s. So what exactly are we going to do to realize this strategy? Well, we're going to, as I said, acquire a Chinese beauty company of reasonable size, and also really grow our research and innovation center that's currently in the Pudong area in Shanghai. And finally, also increase our spending in social media marketing and really invest in the company's digital platform because, as was said before, e-commerce is going to be very important for us. So how is this actually going to lead to sales for the company? Well, first of all, we would like to mention that the acquisition is feasible, is financially feasible. We're a leader in many segments in the beauty industry, and we're sitting on a good amount of retained earnings and cash flows. And while we may have to finance part of the acquisition with debt, it is something that can be covered over time using the cost savings that will come out of this synergetic effect from the acquisition. Also, the acquisition itself will give L'Oreal a more local feel of the markets in China, which will allow the company to really grow with the market which is growing at a very fast pace, as we described before. And finally, more spending on media will naturally translate to more visibility in e-commerce, and that will translate to higher sales and hopefully help us realize our goal of adding 10% every year for the next 4 years.
Thank you, Johnny. So, halal cosmetics. Halal, which means permissible, and that is lawful in the Islamic law. Halal cosmetics are free from animal blood, pork, and pork products, as well as from alcoholic content. And through insights of markets, we believe that this is an underserved market. Muslim consumers are spending an increasing amount of money on beauty products, and the global Muslim spending in cosmetics is expected to reach $73 billion by 2019, making up 8.2% of global expenditure. Other insights, such as the Middle East and Asia, which makes up 81% of the total world Muslim population. You have Muslim consumers, like I said, spending a lot more, and a lot of that is going towards halal cosmetics, which was a $20 billion industry in 2014, is expected to double by 2019. The halal cosmetics competitive landscape is highly fragmented, with regional and local firms without a major multinational company. And so our strategy is to focus on the integration conscious and Muslim consumer in the halal cosmetics market, focusing mainly on Asian, Pacific, and Middle Eastern cosmetic markets through a regional brand through acquisition. And so the actions we want to take based off these insights are: 1, acquiring a leading regional halal certified makeup brand in the Asian Pacific market. 2, market the regional firm with L'Oreal brand name. And the big thing with these two is that 1, certification for halal products, which is essential to the success of halal cosmetics products within consumers' preferences, is that certifications are highly fragmented between different regional areas. And so we want to target Asian Pacific market initially because they have one of the most uniform regional certification processes, which we see as a strong barrier to entry against other foreign brands. Secondly, we want to use the L'Oreal brand name with this regional Pacific brand in order to appeal to consumers based on L'Oreal's history, while also using L'Oreal's broad network and distribution to build this regional brand. Thirdly, we want to use e-commerce to build brand recognition more globally, which we think gives us an advantage in that, yes, we're creating authenticity within our Asian Pacific market, but we're also allowing different markets via the internet to obtain the products within our halal cosmetics. And we think the best way to go about this is increasing research and development in the Asian Pacific and Middle Eastern market, which is in alignment with our past segmentation, which allows us to best understand the consumer of the Muslim faith while also using the resources of our acquired regional brand. And so the causal logic is the combination of regional halal certified brand under the global umbrella, like I just mentioned. The halal cosmetics market is expected to double with double-digit annual growth until 2020, which will double the market, which allows L'Oreal could obtain a large market share in a very fragmented, highly progressively growing market. The Asian Pacific region, like I said, has the most unified certification, which we believe would create the barrier to entry. And so our goals for halal cosmetics through 2020 would be growing revenues in Asian Pacific and Middle Eastern markets by 15% annually through 2020, which is in alignment with the projected growth rates of halal cosmetics within those markets. Obtain 20% market share in Southeast Asia and South Asia by 2020, which we think using our regional brand with the global abilities of L'Oreal's name is a very obtainable goal. And then grow color cosmetics and skincare revenues in the Asian Pacific by 15 and 35% respectively annually through 2020. And the reason for this is in alignment with the insights we obtained earlier in the e-commerce and in China is the growing millennials across, and what's trending highly is these makeup and skincare products within these markets. And so the convergence of these three strategies between the e-commerce millennials, the Chinese market, and the halal cosmetics market, all are in alignment with L'Oreal's current and future strategy of deep segmentation and sub-segmentation in order to understand our consumers better than our competitors. And these insights allow us to, one, create products, invest in research and development, and be the first ones in with our broad range of products into these markets. Thank you very much.